The bus hissed to a stop at Fort Jackson, its metal doors folding open with a reluctant groan. A line of wide-eyed recruits spilled out onto the hot tarmac, duffel bags slung over their shoulders, unsure whether to look eager or invisible. Among them was Elena Ramirez, her black ponytail tucked tightly beneath her cap, her boots laced with precise, obsessive neatness. She didn't look like a soldier. She looked like someone who had wandered into the wrong movie, too small, too light, too clean. She had the frame of a distance runner and the poise of someone used to being overlooked. One of the other recruits, a burly guy with a voice that cracked like gravel, snorted when he saw her. "Hey," he whispered to the guy beside him. Did the Girl Scouts start sending volunteers now?" The laughter came like an echo-quick low, shared in glances. Elena heard it. She didn't react. They didn't know her, and that was their mistake. Inside the barracks, they were split into units. The drill sergeants barked names, assigned bunks, and laid out the rules with the brutality of a war movie director. Elena barely blinked as her name was called. She didn't ask questions. She didn't complain. She just nodded, took her bunk, and started organizing her footlocker with the precision of an engineer. That night, as lights out was called and the others stumbled into their sheets, she sat upright for a few minutes longer, staring at the ceiling. Her roommate, Jackson, leaned over. "You some kind of teacher?" Jackson asked. "No," Elena said. "Why?" "You write everything down, like you're studying us." Elena smiled faintly. Old habit. In truth, she was studying them every motion, every command, every reaction. She watched who cracked under pressure, who thrived on noise, who overcompensated, who coasted on brute strength. She wasn't stronger, but she could be smarter. She knew that knowledge could be a weapon sharper than any blade. The real test came on day 5. They were taken to the weapons assignment shed. Each recruit would receive their basic rifle, and after orientation, they'd begin their firearms training. The sergeants handed out M16s, one by one, with rehearsed indifference. When Elena stepped forward, the sergeant, a tall man with arms the size of sandbags, looked her up and down. "Ramirez?" He said, double quotes, "Yes, Sergeant. You sure this isn't a clerical error? You here for desk duty?" A chuckle swept through the recruits behind her. She didn't flinch. "No, Sergeant. I'd like to request rifle squad assignment." The laughter broke like a wave. One recruit nearly dropped his weapon from laughing. Another mined fainting. A third elbowed the guy beside him and whispered, "Hope she brought her glitter scope." The sergeant didn't laugh, but his face wore a smirk. "You want a rifle, huh?" "Yes, Sergeant." He leaned in, voice low. "You know what happens in Rifle Squad, Ramirez? It's not just range shooting and posing for Instagram. You'll sweat. You'll bleed. You'll carry 50 pounds of gear through mud and rocks and nightmares. You'll sleep in the dirt and maybe not sleep at all." "I know, Sergeant." He narrowed his eyes, testing her. "You ever even hold one of these before?" "Yes." "Toy." "Doesn't count." It wasn't a toy. The smirk faded slightly. Something in her tone, steady, clipped, confident, pricked at him. He shoved a clipboard into her hand. "Sign it. Rifle Squad prep starts tomorrow." She signed out as she turned. To walk away, the sergeant muttered, "Don't say I didn't warn you." The rest of the day was a blur of stares and second glances. At the mess hall, no one sat at her table. One recruit walked by and whispered, "Make sure your safety's on, Rambo." That night, as most of the unit crashed into their bunks, exhausted from drills, Elena sat on the edge of her bed, unlacing her boots slowly. Jackson leaned down from the top bunk. "They're gonna give you hell, you know. I figured you could transfer. No shame in it. There's also no honor in running." Jackson nodded, then smiled. You talk like someone twice your age. Elena shrugged. I've had some practice. What she didn't say was this. She had grown up in a neighborhood where danger came with the school bell. Her brother had joined a gang at 15 and died before 19. Her father had vanished when she was 8. Her mother worked 2 jobs, barely enough to keep the lights on. Elena learned early that silence could be armor and study could be survival. While others were fighting each other, she was learning wind physics and memorizing angles. That's why she joined. Not to escape, but to master something. To belong to something greater. She wanted to prove that people like her didn't need to roar to make an impact. They just needed the chance to show up, weapon in hand, when it mattered. And tomorrow, she would get that chance. As the barracks quieted and the night pressed in around them. Elena lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling again. Her heart wasn't pounding. Her breath wasn't shaky. She whispered the phrase to herself like a vow. Give me the rifle. She meant it. And soon, they'd see why. Elena Ramirez woke up before the bugle sounded, while others still wrestled their sheets. She was lacing her boots in the dark, each loop pulled tight with quiet focus. She didn't need the alarm anymore. Her mind had already learned the rhythm of the camp, and her body was starting to follow. But when she stepped outside for roll call, the air felt heavier than usual. Not because of the heat, but because of the eyes. They were watching her. More than a few recruits had bet she'd quit within a week, especially after her rifle squad request. The fact that she was still standing, still silent, still there, it unsettled them. People don't like when the punchline refuses to fall apart. As they stood at attention, Drill Sergeant Blake paced the line. His boots hit the ground with mechanical weight, eyes sharp and scanning. Today, he barked, you start your first live fire drills. Basic rifle handling. You mess up, you're benched. You freeze, you're out. You whine, cry, trip, faint eye. We'll personally make sure you scrub latrines until your grandchildren feel the shame. The line didn't move. He stopped in front of Elena. You ready for this, Private? Yes, Sergeant. You sure? That rifle's not a purse. You drop it, I drop you. I won't drop it. A pause. Then he moved on. Whispers followed as the formation broke. They weren't loud, but they didn't have to be. She's gonna choke. Should have picked medical supply. Bet she doesn't even know how to switch firing modes. At the range, she didn't speak. She didn't smile. She didn't joke. She just listened, watching how the others held their rifles, how they braced their feet, how they overcompensated got when her turn came. She stepped forward, adjusted her stance, and fired 3 rounds. Clean, tight, near dead center. The instructor paused and checked the grouping. He glanced at her without comment and nodded to the next recruit. No praise. No recognition. But no criticism either. It was a small win. Until lunch. The mess hall was buzzing by noon soldiers lined up for trays of food that looked more like science experiments than meals. Elena moved through the line wordlessly, collecting boiled chicken, watery potatoes, and a biscuit that could double as a doorstop. She scanned the room. Every table was packed with clusters of familiarity buddies from the same hometowns. Guys who bonded over games or football teams, girls who traded inside jokes, and swapped protein bars. Not one space opened when she stepped forward. She picked a corner table, isolated and near the emergency exit, and ate alone. Halfway through her meal, a shadow loomed. It was Becker, the same recruit who had laughed loudest when she'd asked for the rifle. Hey, Ramirez, he said, flashing a wolfish grin. Saw your shot grouping. Not bad, for a librarian. The table beside her erupted in laughter. She didn't look up. Becker pulled out a chair and sat sideways, legs sprawled. Tell me something. You actually think you're gonna keep up out there? Once the drills go full force? Once we're running live evac scenarios? This ain't math class. You can't just solve for X and expect bullets to miss you. Elena raised her eyes slowly. I don't need bullets to miss, she said. I just need to hit mine first. That shut him up for a second. Then came the mock applause. Ooh, Ramirez, with the sniper sass. Somebody call Hollywood. More laughter. She stood up. Tray in hand. As she walked away, Becker called out, Hope you've got glitter on that scope. Maybe the targets will be too dazzled to shoot back. She didn't stop walking. She didn't need to. Later that night, Jackson found her on her bunk, polishing her rifle with rhythmic care. She didn't look up when he entered. You good? Jackson asked, climbing up to the top bunk. Fine. They're not gonna stop, you know. Not until you shut them up. No. Jackson looked over the side of the bunk, arms hanging. You've got the coldest stare I've ever seen. Like you're already at war with them. I'm not. You're not? No, Elena said. I'm at war with the story they've already written about me. Jackson was quiet for a moment. What kind of story? That I'm weak, that I'm slow, that I shouldn't be here, that I'm some kind of joke who'll crack the first time she's under fire. Jackson nodded. What are you gonna do? Rewrite it. Outside, crickets hummed against the darkened field. Inside, bunk after bunk surrendered to exhaustion. But Elena didn't sleep right away. She opened the Army handbook and began reviewing ballistics again. Wind resistance, bullet drop, time to dash impact. If strength wouldn't earn her a place, then perfection would. The next morning, while Becker bragged to the others about a date he claimed to have scheduled after graduation, Elena was already at the range 15 minutes early, rifle in hand, eyes locked on a moving target reel. She talked the armory staff into activating. Her grouping tightened, her breath slowed. Her myth began, and the laughing? It had started to quiet down. It was well past midnight, but Elena Ramirez wasn't asleep. In the dead stillness of the barracks, she lay fully dressed on her bunk, eyes wide open, counting the ceiling tiles for the third time. Around her, the room pulsed with the soft, rhythmic breathing of exhausted recruits. A few muttered in their sleep. Someone snored loudly in the far corner. But Elena was still, not because of fear, because of focus. She moved silently, rolling off the bed with the kind of practiced precision you'd expect from someone trying not to wake ghosts. She laced up her boots in the dark, grabbed her rifle case, and crept out of the barracks like smoke. Outside, the training grounds were empty, bathed in silver moonlight, and quiet as a graveyard. The towers were unmanned at night. No one expected trouble during training weeks. Elena made her way down the gravel path, her boots crunching softly beneath her. She wasn't supposed to be here, but rules were made for the average. Elena didn't plan to be average. When she reached the edge of the range, she spotted the shadow already waiting for her. You're late, said Webb, a supply unit corporal who owed her a favor after she helped him rewrite a technical manual. The month before, he was leaning against the ammo crate, arms folded. No, I'm on time. You're early, she said, smiling faintly. He tossed her a set of hearing protectors. 10 minutes. That's all you get before I vanish. That's all I need. The lane was already prepped, an old, outdoor simulation setup with a mounted pulley target system. Paper silhouettes on tracks, unpredictable movement. It wasn't high-end, but it worked. She set her rifle on the rest, loaded a single clip, then adjusted the scope with careful fingers. Wind, low. Humidity, moderate. No moon obstruction. She closed one eye, drew a breath, and let it out like it was steam rising from her chest. The first shot cracked the silence. Target Hit center mass dot, she adjusted. Fired again. Another hit dot. His web leaned against the shadows, arms crossed. He began to frown. You've been practicing more than I thought. I don't like failing, she replied between reloads. You don't sleep much, do you? No. Time for that. The third shot landed dead center. Then a fourth, fifth. She began pushing distance now targets at 300 meters. Then 400. Her accuracy dropped slightly at range, but her correction curve was steep. Each shot came faster, smoother. Her stance was controlled. Her breathing nearly undetectable. After 9 minutes and a dozen rounds, she was done. Webb stood silently, clearly rethinking what he knew about the quiet girl with the hard stare. Ever think about applying for sniper track? He asked. They'd never approve it. You keep shooting like that, they won't have a choice. She didn't answer. Just cleaned the rifle, reloaded her gear, and nodded at Webb in quiet thanks. As she turned to leave, he called out softly. You're not like the others, Ramirez. I know, she said without looking back. That's the problem. The next morning, Becker was holding court again. He lounged in the sun like he'd already won the war, bragging about his kill counts in virtual war games and joking about how he could lead a real mission blindfolded. You see that chick on Bravo? Team? He said to a cluster of recruits. Shot herself in the foot during range day. I'm telling you, they're handing out rifles like snacks now. He spotted Elena walking by and raised his voice. Hey, Corporal Calculator, you figure out the exact angle to run away at yet? The guys laughed. Elena didn't stop. She didn't even blink, but someone else noticed. From a second-story office, behind a tinted window, Colonel Malcolm Davies had been watching the range footage. His desk was littered with performance reports, bullet grouping charts, and behavior. Notes. Most of the names blurred together except one. Ramirez Elena M. He double-clicked the video feed again. There she was. Low stance, tight grip, minimal recoil. Textbook breathing. And something instinctive. The ability to adapt on the fly, to recalibrate mid-sequence. Sir? A voice called from outside. Lieutenant Dana poked her head in. You asked for a summary on private range usage? Davies nodded. How many times has Ramirez been logged at the range after hours? Dana blinked. Officially? None. But Webb's badge has been signed in 6 nights in a row. Same time, same lane. Davies smiled faintly. Find me her file. That night, Elena returned to the range again. Webb was gone this time, but the gate was still unlocked. Someone had left the light on over the equipment bench. Confused, she stepped inside. There, resting against the wall, was a locked case. The top was a sticky note, handwritten. Use this tonight. Let's see what you can really do. She opened it slowly. Inside was a modified M4 Sleek, matte black, enhanced optics, custom grip, and polished internals. The kind of rifle usually reserved for special forces tryouts. She recognized. It instantly. The black Talon. Her breath caught. It was heavier than hers, but balanced like a dancer. As she set it on the stand and loaded her first clip, she realized something had shifted. The laughter, the whispers, the doubts, they weren't gone yet, but they were cracking, and with every pull of the trigger, she was pushing through. The list went up on a Friday morning. It was taped to the glass wall outside the command office, 20 names in bold black ink under a single heading. Operation Iron Dagger Simulation Assignment Roster Elite Tactical Evaluation. Advanced. Recruits only. Recruits swarmed around it like moths to a flame. Elena stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed, watching with unreadable calm as names were called out in high fives and slaps on the back. Becker's voice was the loudest. Knew it. Number 6, baby. he shouted, spinning around. Didn't even prep that hard. Born for this. He looked straight at Elena. You checking to see if you're on there? Might want to look at the lunch crew sign-ups instead. The recruits chuckled again. Elena waited for the crowd to thin. Then she stepped forward. Her eyes scanned the list top to bottom, twice. Her name wasn't there, not even as an alternate. The clipboard beside the sheet held the criteria breakdown. She skimmed it, already knowing the metrics by heart. Marksmanship, scores, endurance, decision-making, psychological stability. She had exceeded most of them. The only real knock against her had been field assertiveness. That was code for one thing. She didn't shout loud enough. Later that day, she sat in the motor pool alone, cleaning her rifle with mechanical precision, frustration coiled tight behind her quiet face. She hadn't cried she wouldn't give them that, but her hands moved with a clipped fury, rubbing the barrel until it gleamed like obsidian. Jackson found her there. They didn't put you on the list? He asked, stunned. Elena shook her head. Why? They said I'm not field tested. Enough. That's bull. You've outshot every guy in the unit. Even Becker. Especially Becker. I don't have the right voice, she said simply. Apparently, proving yourself silently isn't the same as doing it loudly. Jackson looked away, angry for her. Then, footsteps. Fast, heavy, official. A lieutenant rounded the corner and looked directly at Elena. Private Ramirez? She stood. Sir, Colonel Davies wants to see you. Now. The command building smelled like gun oil and old paper. Its walls were covered in plaquesmen and women whose names were etched in history, most with steely eyes and unsmiling faces. Elena had never been inside before. Not like this. She stood at attention outside the colonel's office until a soldier nodded her in. Colonel Malcolm Davies sat behind a battered oak desk, sleeves rolled, coffee untouched beside a tablet. He looked up as she entered, eyes sharp but not unkind. At ease, he said. Elena relaxed only slightly. I've been reviewing your record, he said. High academic marks, perfect range scores, strong initiative. She said nothing. But you weren't selected for Iron Dagger. No, sir. You know why? Yes, sir. Why? Because I don't fit the mold. Davies cracked a rare, tired smile. Exactly. They want loud, big, theatrical. Soldiers who command attention before they earn it. You don't. I didn't know subtlety was a disqualification. He leaned back, fingers steepled. Neither did I, until I watched your footage from the range last night. Elena's heart skipped, but her face remained calm. Do you know what the Black Talon is, Private? Yes, sir. Then you know it's issued only to soldiers with Tier 1 clearance and advanced CQB testing. I've read the manual, sir. I don't mean the manual, he said. I mean the weapon. What it stands for. She looked him in the eye. Precision, discipline, lethality, silence. He nodded. Then he tapped a folder on the desk. I want you in Iron Dagger, not as a standard recruit, as support sniper. Long-range recon. I've cleared it with command. Elena didn't move. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. The rifle you used last night. It's not alone, Davies added. It's yours. Take care of it. A long pause. Then his voice dropped a note lower. But there's one condition. Yes, sir? You'll be dropped in late. No teen welcome. No prep. They won't even know you're part of the sim until they need you. You'll be behind enemy lines alone. You won't have backup unless you create it. You up for that? Elena's answer was instant. Yes, sir. He rose and held out a hand. She shook it. His grip was strong, solid, respectful. Then get ready, he said. As she walked out of the office. Every step felt heavier. Not because of fear, but because the weight of being believed in was something she hadn't carried in a long time. Later that night, word spread fast, not through an announcement, not through a posted list, but through whispers. She's going into Iron Dagger. No way. Ramirez? She got the Black Talon. You serious? Dead serious. Colonel himself approved it. Becker's voice cracked as he heard the news from Jackson at dinner. That's gotta be a joke. She's not even on the roster. She is now, Jackson said with a grin. Hope you don't get pinned out there. She might have to save your ass. Becker slammed his fork down. Elena sat 2 tables away, alone as usual. But now the silence around her wasn't dismissive. It was alert, curious, respectful, back in her bunk. The Black Talon lay across her lap. She ran her hands across its barrel, then adjusted the custom scope until it felt like an extension of her own vision. The rifle was balanced like a blade, perfectly centered, no waste in weight or motion. She slid her finger along the trigger, not to pull it, but to feel the discipline it demanded. She didn't smile, but inside something had shifted. She had stepped beyond their story, and now they would have to enter hers. At 0430, the world was dark enough to feel infinite. A transport truck, disguised in matte black, rumbled through the forested training grounds of Fort Jackson. Its headlights dimmed, its interior nearly silent, except for the hum of gears and the low breathing of its lone passenger. Alana Ramirez sat in the back, armored vest snug over her ribs, a Black Talon rifle strapped across her chest like a sacred weight. Her helmet bore no identifying marks, no squad badge, just a small strip of black tape across the back, with 3 letters stenciled on in white. LRS Long Range Support. She wasn't part of any fire team. She was her own shadow. The truck stopped a half-click outside the simulated Afghan village zone. Echo, a full-scale replica built to stress-test elite combat readiness. Over 40 actors dressed as enemy combatants, civilians, and unmarked threats were stationed inside. Hidden cameras tracked every step, every shot. The main unit had been inserted 3 hours earlier. Elena was arriving late by design. Her orders were simple: observe, support, and intervene only when the situation reached critical threshold. The back gate rolled open. Cold air sliced across her face. Go, the driver grunted. Elena dropped down, boots hitting the soil with quiet certainty. She disappeared into the tree line. The Black Talon cradled like a lifeline, at 0530. The first shots echoed in the distance. The mission had begun. She climbed to the top of a ridge, on the northwest perimeter, overlooking the village. The vantage point was clear, and she moved like she'd been born there, crawling belly down through underbrush. Without a single snap of twig, she deployed the BIPOD.SCOPED in saw everything inside the village. Team Alpha was moving too fast. Overconfident, Becker led the squad's right flank, barking orders like he was starring in an action movie. They cleared buildings with efficiency, but Elena could see their blind spots. Civilians misidentified, corners not double-checked, roofs ignored, and then it happened. A glint of metal behind a second-story window. She adjusted. Zoomed. Confirmed. Simulated RPG launcher. Painted tip, but correct shape. No callouts from the team below. No one saw it. Elena didn't hesitate. Crack. The shot rang through the trees like a gavel. Puff of blue smoke exploded from the actor's vest inside the window-simulated kill. The Black Talon had spoken. Seconds later, chaos erupted. 4 more. Hostiles emerged from rooftops and alleyways, all reacting to the unexpected sniper fire. Alpha team was exposed. Their comms scrambled. Too many buildings. Too many angles. Too much bravado. Where the hell is that coming from? Becker shouted over the simulation radio, crouching behind a broken cart. "Do we have air cover?" "No," another soldier yelled. "Sniper friendly, maybe?" Elena scoped in again. Enemy actors sprinting between walls. No time to warn them. Crack. Another puff of blue. She adjusted. Another enemy ducking behind. A simulated propane tank. Crack. Third down. She was paintbrushing the battlefield with precision, turning chaos into containment. Team Alpha began regaining control partly from training, mostly because someone invisible was holding the perimeter. The simulation director, watching from a live control room, leaned forward. "Who the hell is covering them?" "One of the evaluators," asked. Colonel Davies didn't look up. "Ramirez." They all fell silent. At 0610, Elena made her first move. The simulated drone used by the enemy an aerial recon device on a pre-programmed path had begun circling too close to her position. Though it wasn't real, getting spotted would change the sim's rules. She had to move. She packed the Talon with clinical speed and slipped down the ridge. Her breath stayed low. Movements short and smooth. Every 10 steps, she dropped to a crouch. At one point, 2 actors in insurgent gear passed less than 10 feet. From her through the thicket, she didn't flinch. Just lowered her profile and became part of the earth. She made it to the west side of the village wall and climbed into a collapsed rooftop. Setting up again. From here, she saw everything. The Alpha team was storming the market's square, narrow alleys. Unpredictable cover. She locked onto another threat. An enemy sniper on the church tower. Simulated or not, he had real advantage. None of the squad had noticed him. She took the shot. Crack. The dummy dropped. Blue smoke rolled from the chest rig. The simulation paused for 3 seconds. A siren went off a trigger, indicating the end of Phase 1. The rest of the simulation was being adjusted in real time. At 0700, the squad finally located Elena's position only because Colonel Davies had authorized her to join the team for Phase 2. She descended the wall like a phantom and walked straight up to Becker, rifle in hand. He stared at her like he'd seen a ghost. "You?" he said, stunned. "That was you?" She gave a slight nod. "You're welcome." Becker looked away. He didn't say thank you. He didn't need to. His silence said enough. The rest of the team began murmuring. One recruit bumped fists with her. Another offered her a water bottle. Someone muttered, "That shot on the tower god level." Elena stood still. This wasn't triumph. This was just confirmation. From the control room, Colonel Davies watched through his monitor. Recruits were supposed to struggle an iron dagger, flail, make mistakes. Ramirez had just rewritten the protocol. "Promote her," Davies said to his aide. "Effective immediately." "To what, sir?" He smiled. "To whatever rank shuts them up." 2 hours after Operation Iron Dagger ended, Elena Ramirez stood alone in the debriefing room, still coated in simulation dust, her gloves dark with smudged camouflage paint, and the black Talon resting on the table beside her. Her heartbeat had slowed, but her mind was still alive, scanning every angle, every shot, every step she had taken. She hadn't slept, hadn't even sat down. Her body didn't feel tired, only ready. Then the door opened. Colonel Davies entered the room with 2 other officers, and a large screen wheeled behind him on a rolling mount. A few chairs were arranged in rows, empty now, but not for long. "Have a seat, Ramirez," he said. "You're going to want to see this." Elena nodded once and sat in the back corner of the room. She didn't know what was coming, but Davies' face told her would be public. 10 minutes later, the rest of Team Alpha filed in, still sweating. From the sim, some limping from falls or bruises, others whispering about that mystery sniper who had kept them alive. Becker came in last, his expression a tangle of pride and embarrassment. Davies waited until everyone was seated. "Let's keep this brief," he began. Operation Iron Dagger was a test of instinct, coordination, and survival under pressure. For most of you, it was also a lesson in humility. He tapped a remote. The screen flickered to life. Footage played from drone cam, a first-person view of the simulation. Then body cam footage from Becker and 2 other team members. Through it all, one thing became obvious. They had been overwhelmed and outmaneuvered. Until one shooter had turned the tide. The screen switched to overhead thermal vision. A dot moved across the ridgeline, slow, measured, invisible to enemy sensors. "Watch this," Davies said. The footage cut to a slow-motion replay. Elena firing from cover. A 400-meter shot. A moving target. Perfect alignment. Blue smoke erupted from the enemy actor's vest in a puff of simulated death. Silence filled the room. The video continued, overlaying timestamps, enemy movements, and Elena's shot 6 confirmed kills, each of them saving the team from a compromised position. Then the camera cut to Becker, crouched behind a fake barrel. Elena's voice came over the channel. Calm, direct, efficient. "Hostile on tower. Stand by. I've got it." Then crack a clean shot. Game over. Back in the room, Davies let the screen go dark. He turned to the group. "You didn't see her, but she saw you. She covered your blind spots. Saved your mission. And until today, most of you laughed when she asked to carry a rifle." A few recruits shifted in their chairs. Davies nodded toward Elena. "Private Ramirez. Stand up." She rose, back straight, face unreadable. "Effective immediately," Davies said. "You are being promoted to rifle instructor trainee. You'll assist in sniper track prep and advanced optics training. Congratulations." Gasps rippled through the room. Becker stared at her like he didn't recognize her anymore. One of the younger recruits clapped once, then again. A second joined in. The applause was hesitant, but it grew. Not thunderous, but real, earned. Elena nodded politely, then sat back down. Becker didn't clap, but he didn't talk either. That, she figured, was enough for now. Outside the debrief room, word had already begun to spread. It moved faster than the footage ever could. Ramirez had been the sniper, the ghost on the ridge, the hand behind the black Talon dot in the armory. Soldiers who'd ignored her now nodded when she passed. In the chow line, a few stepped aside to make room. No jokes, no spatulas. Respect had no sound, but she could feel it at her barracks. Jackson was waiting on the steps, grinning wide. "I knew it," he said. "I freaking knew it." "You said I looked like a teacher," Elena teased. "Yeah, well, a teacher with a scope and a vendetta." He handed her a water bottle, then pointed to the base bulletin board near the mailboxes. They posted the footage. "That shot on the tower? It's on the highlight reel." Caption says, "Precision under pressure, Ramirez, E. You're basically famous." She laughed softly. "That'll blow over in a week." "Maybe, but not with the new recruits." The next morning, she stepped into the firing range as an assistant instructor. The sergeant on duty raised an eyebrow, then stepped aside. "You're leading line 3, he said. "Got 3 newbies. All shaky. Your call on how to handle it." She nodded, slipped on her gloves, and approached the young recruits. One looked about 19, clearly nervous. "You ever shoot before?" Elena asked. The kid shook his head. "Only in video games," she smiled. "Good. No bad habits to break." She took them through the grip, the stance, the breath. Her voice was calm, firm, patient, not loud, not showy. But when she demonstrated a shot dead center at 300 yards, they listened with open mouths. One recruit muttered, "They weren't." "Kidding," another whispered. "She's the one." That night, Elena stood at the same ridge where she'd taken her first shot in Iron Dagger. The trees whispered in the wind. The ridge was quiet again, but different now. It felt less like hiding, more like owning the high ground. She didn't need fanfare, didn't need an audience. She had the black Talon. And now, she had a voice that didn't need to yell. Not everyone likes to be proven wrong, but even the loudest. Doubters couldn't deny what they'd seen. She didn't argue. She aimed, and the shot spoke for her. The glass conference room on the 3rd floor of headquarters was known as the box, a cold, square room where important things happened behind soundproof walls and one-way mirrors. Elena Ramirez had never been inside before. Today, she walked. In wearing her pressed fatigues and a steel-straight expression, she wasn't nervous, just ready. Inside, 4 high-ranking officers were already seated. Colonel Davies stood at the head of the table, arms folded behind his back. Beside him, Major Holden from Advanced Combat Strategy, Captain Reyes from Special Forces Recruitment, and the civilian Dr. Lena Marks, head of Tactical Performance Psychology. "Elena," Davies said, waving her to a chair. "You know why you're here? To review my performance. To discuss what comes next," he corrected. Holden leaned forward. "Your decision-making under pressure during Operation Iron Dagger was beyond exceptional. The team would have been compromised without your intervention. You made calls even the AI playback couldn't simulate," Dr. Marks added. "Fast, emotionally neutral, high accuracy. You're what we call a focus outlier. Very rare." Ramirez shifted in her chair. "Thank you, ma'am. But I wasn't trying to outperform the simulation. I was just doing my job." "That's exactly why we want you to lead," said Captain Reyes. "We're forming a tactical mentorship unit, one-on-one training, precision shooting, tactical foresight. You'll take one recruit at a time and bring them up to your level or as close as they can get." Elena blinked. I'm not a commander." "You don't need to be," Davies said. "You need to be an example." There was a pause. Then Marks added, "But we have one concern." Elena raised an eyebrow. "Which is, you haven't spoken to the press. You haven't given a speech. You haven't even accepted the base commendation. And yet, everyone already knows your name. You're an introvert in the middle of a spotlight." "I didn't ask for the spotlight," Elena said, voice calm. "Exactly," Davies replied. "Which makes people listen harder." The meeting ended with a signature and a handshake. No ceremony. No cameras. Just a folder stamped "Clearance, Level 2, Approved." As she left the building, a figure waited near the flagpole leaning, arms crossed, mouth twisted in the way that said he didn't know how to start. Becker. He walked up slowly, almost unsure if she'd acknowledge him. "They gave you an office, huh?" He said. "I'm not using it," Elena replied. "Just somewhere to store gear." Becker nodded. "Look, I owe you." "No, you don't. I do," he insisted. "And not just for Iron Dagger, for proving me wrong." Elena looked at him, not angry, not smug, just steady. "You laughed when I asked for a rifle. I know. You mocked me in front of half the barracks. I know. So why now?" Becker sighed. "Because I saw it. All of it. You weren't trying to show us up. You were just doing the work. That's what gets me." He extended his hand. For a long moment, she didn't move. Then she shook it. "Don't screw it up," she said. The mentorship program started quiet. No banners. No bulletins. Elena took her first student out to the range at 0600 sharp. A nervous private named Sing fresh from civilian life. Eyes still too wide for this world. He missed every shot on day one. But he listened, and she didn't yell, didn't roll her eyes. Just corrected grip, guided breath, and reminded him that precision wasn't about perfection. It was about calm. On day 3, he hit center mass. On day 5, He started whispering his own adjustments before she could say them. Word began to spread. Recruits signed up for her slots like they were auditioning for something more than just marksmanship. And in a way, they were. Because when Elena trained you, it wasn't just about bullets. It was about belief. Meanwhile, back inside command, not everyone was thrilled. She's creating loyalty without a rank to match. One colonel muttered in a closed-door meeting. That's dangerous. She's proving the system wrong, another added. And soldiers talk. But Davies held the line. She's reminding us what this place is supposed to build: competence, not confidence. Skill, not swagger. Still, the whispers continued. Especially when a group of high-ranking officers received an anonymous note reading, "A girl with a rifle changed more minds than your policies ever did." That night, Elena returned to the high ridge where it all began. The moonlight carved the trees into silver ghosts. She didn't carry the black Talon tonight, just stood with hands in her pockets, watching the training village below as new recruits ran drills, clumsy and loud. They reminded her of herself. She wasn't chasing medals. She didn't want a statue. She wanted a pipeline. A generation who didn't have to beg to be taken seriously. She exhaled, soft and steady, and turned away from the ridge, heading back toward the lights, not to hide, but to lead. The morning air was heavy with tension. Fort Jackson was hosting its first multi-branch simulation, Tournament Project Titan, a massive war game involving Army, Marines, and Air Force operatives. The scenario was high stakes, a hostage extraction from an abandoned military compound, rigged with sensors, traps, and simulated combatants. The twist? Each team was given a single sniper, one per branch, and the Army had chosen Elena Ramirez. 80500. She knelt alone in the prep room, lacing her boots tighter than usual. Her uniform wore no extra stripes, no loud commendations. Just the quiet authority of someone who'd earned every ounce of trust by doing more and saying less. Her black Talon rifle sat gleaming under the fluorescent light, its matte black body polished and ready. Behind her, the door creaked open. Colonel Davies entered, coffee in one hand, folded document in the other. "Elena," he said, "before you go out there, you should know something." She stood up, tightening her gloves. "Sir, after today, we're submitting your name to the National Tactical Honor Registry. It's not a formality. It's for active operatives who've shifted protocol without ever breaking it. You rewrote the rules just by following them better than anyone else." Elena blinked once. "Thank you, sir." Davies stepped closer. "You don't need to win this thing. Just do it your way." Elena gave a small smile. "I only know one way." At 0600, the sim began. The entire base was watching from monitors. In the viewing hall, recruits and officers sat glued to the screens, tracking every move via heat maps and helmet cams. The Marines entered from the south gate. Air Force from the rooftop drop. Army came in from underground. Elena's vantage point was deep in the wooded ridge, facing the northwest tower of the simulated compound. The terrain was brutal elevated brush, poor wind flow, fluctuating light. Settled in, breath measured. Scope steady. Her squad, codenamed Echo Team, was already breaching Building Alpha, but they didn't know two enemy actors were circling behind them through the western flank. Through the lens of her scope, Elena saw it unfold like a slow-motion nightmare. Two men in hostile gear, sweeping silently with simulated carbines. If they reached the breach point, Echo would be pinned. She zeroed in. Target 1, walking with pace, unaware. Target 2, covering rear, pausing every few steps. Crack. Blue smoke. Target 1 down. Target 2 froze, turned, scanned. He crouched. Elena waited for the movement that meant hostile intent. But it didn't come. Instead, he reached into a fake civilian pocket and raised an orange card. It flapped in the wind. Simulated civilian. Misidentified. Her heart stopped for a fraction of a second. She had fired just in time before both entered the zone. Only one had been armed. The other was a test. A psychological lure. A mistake would have cost her team penalty points and maybe disqualification. Elena adjusted. Her finger never twitched on the trigger. Behind her, the simulation command center. Murmured in awe. She read it. She read the entire posture, a psychologist said. She's not hunting, Davies added. She's solving. 20 minutes later, the compound center ignited in chaos. A simulated explosion blew out the south stairwell. Echo Team fell back. A Marine unit began advancing on the eastern side, clearly ahead of schedule. Rules allowed one sniper to redirect. The scenario. One shot. And now all eyes were on Elena. From her ridge, she could see a hostile actor moving toward a hostage dummy, simulated knife in hand. This was the moment where other snipers took the shot. Saved the hostage. Got the glory, but Elena hesitated. Then she moved her scope slightly. Past the actor. To a reflective surface in the corner of a broken vehicle mirror. In it, she could see a shadow crawling behind the original target, another actor dressed as a backup enemy, knife already drawn. The real threat. The decoy had been bait. Crack. She hit the right one. Smoke exploded. The dummy was untouched. The crowd inside the control room burst into claps. Davies smiled. That's why she's different. When the simulation ended, the final results came in. Marines, 1 hostage rescued, 2 civilian kills. Air Force, 2 hostages, but mission breach due to early assault. Army, 3 hostages rescued, 0 civilian casualties. 0 friendly fire. Unprecedented. Elena Ramirez didn't speak when they handed her the results. She just walked to the end of the hall where a young recruit stood frozen, holding a phone and shaking slightly. You all right? She asked. The recruit nodded. That shot, the last one. I would have taken the first guy. That's why you're training, Alana said. It's not about the shot you take. It's about the one you don't. That evening, back at the barracks, Jackson found her sitting alone again. This time, not on a ridge, but on the steps of the admin building. Want to hear something crazy? He said, tossing her a protein bar. What? They're naming a tactical range after you. Ramirez Precision Deck. She snorted. Sounds ridiculous. I mean, it's better than Becker Hall. She smirked. There was a pause. Then Jackson asked, quieter, Do you ever miss just being invisible? Elena looked at the stars. For a long moment. No, she said. But I miss not having to explain myself. He nodded. You don't anymore. In the months that followed, the footage of her final simulation was used across tactical training schools. Not because she took the perfect shot, but because she waited. She had every right to pull the trigger, and every reason not to. And that more than skill, rank, or recognition became her legacy. The sniper who made history not for who she hit, but for who she didn't. The end.